Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into an absolutely epic 12,000-year journey of human spirituality today. We are going to trace the sweeping evolution of belief, taking us all the way from ancient stone monuments carved by hunter-gatherers right up to the virtual reality metaverses and AI-driven ministries of 2026. It's a truly fascinating story about how our human drive to connect with the divine has stayed surprisingly constant, even as the tools we use to do so have radically transformed. Let's get into it.
To help us wrap our heads around this massive timeline, we're going to follow 5 key phases: the dawn of worship, the rise of organized faiths, global religious demographics, the digital transformation, and finally, the future of faith.
Section 1. The Dawn of Worship. Unearthing Göbekli Tepe.
We're kicking things off with a massive historical plot twist in southeastern Turkey. For the longest time, the consensus was that humans settled down, invented farming, built cities, and then, eventually, developed complex religions. But Göbekli Tepe completely wrecked that theory. Built around 10,000 BCE, it predates organized historical religions by thousands of years. We're talking about a massive ceremonial center built by nomadic hunter-gatherers long before anyone had even figured out permanent settlements.
And you have to appreciate the sheer effort this took. Early humans carved and dragged limestone pillars weighing up to 16 tons. Just imagine doing that without wheels or power tools. They decorated them with these intricate carvings of wild boars, foxes, and stylized humans. Coordinating a project of that magnitude required intense communal effort. It literally proves that the drive to worship and perform rituals was the very catalyst that brought humans together to settle down in the first place, not the other way around.
Section 2. Rise of organized faiths. Structuring the divine.
As those early communities evolved into massive civilizations, their belief systems leveled up in complexity, giving rise to the organized traditions that shaped the world. Broadly, we can impartially group the major theological frameworks into 2 massive families: Abrahamic and Dharmic. The Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, originated in the Middle East and share a belief in one God, linear time, and revelation through prophets. On the flip side, the Dharmic traditions from India, like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, often focus on cyclical time, karma, reincarnation, and the pursuit of spiritual liberation.
Now, obviously, the specific doctrines differ wildly from one another. You have adherence to the Torah, the Christian concept of grace, Islamic submission, Hindu devotion, Buddhist nirvana, and Sikh community service. But the fascinating takeaway is that each of these traditions provided a highly structured blueprint for living. They gave people a clear, organized path to access the divine, find meaning, and build communities that would eventually span the entire globe.
And of course, as people traveled and traded over the centuries, these belief systems inevitably bumped into each other. This led to syncretism, which is basically the blending of different religious traditions into something new. It shows just how fluid and adaptable human belief can be. Now, this is debated. For instance, some historians view Sikhism as having syncretic roots that blended Hindu and Sufi concepts, while many Sikhs maintain their faith as a totally distinct, direct divine revelation.
Section 3. Global Religious Demographics. The Map of Faith Today.
So, how does this all shake out in the modern world? Well, according to 2020 data, a whopping 3/4 of the global population still self-affiliates with at least one religion. The big takeaway here is that despite all our massive scientific and technological advancements, understanding faith is absolutely essential for understanding your neighbors, your coworkers, and even global geopolitics. That ancient human drive is still incredibly dominant. But the intensity of that belief varies wildly depending on where you stand. In regions like the Middle East and Africa, religiosity is deeply concentrated, sitting at over 90%. Contrast that with plunging disaffiliation rates down to around 10% in places like China, and you see similar secular shifts happening across Western Europe. Then you have places like Singapore, scoring a massive 9.3 out of 10 on the Religious Diversity Index, because it has substantial coexisting populations of Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and the religiously unaffiliated. It is literally the most religiously diverse country in the world, closely followed by Taiwan and South Korea. The United States is kind of a unique paradox here. Globally, it ranks 32nd in religious diversity. But when you only compare it to the world's 10 largest nations, giants like China, India, and Brazil, the U.S. ranks number 1 as a highly diverse melting pot, even as its historic Christian majority slowly shifts.
Section 4. The Digital Transformation.
Faith and Technology in 2026.
We are literally living through a revolution right now in how these communities practice their faith. Just to understand the scale of this, a staggering 50 million Americans tuned into online church services during a recent Easter weekend. The era of the live stream being just a backup plan for when you're sick, that's entirely over. The digital platform is now a primary, totally integrated mode of worship.
And it's not just Zoom calls anymore. AI is fundamentally reshaping the landscape. Religious leaders are using real-time AI translation to instantly break down language barriers in their congregations. People are interacting with chatbots like Quran GPT and RabbiBot to explore scripture. Pastors are even using AI to draft sermon outlines. The goal isn't to replace human leaders, but rather to automate the admin side so they can focus on actual, meaningful human connection.
The frontier gets even wilder with virtual reality. Physical churches are being mirrored by VR congregations in the metaverse. These are entirely borderless, avatar-based communities that offer unprecedented access for the disabled, the immunocompromised, or folks living completely off the grid. But man, is it sparking some intense theological debates. Does an avatar being submerged in digital pixels count as a true baptism? The boundaries of what makes a space sacred are being totally redefined.
On the administrative side, the blockchain is coming into play. Churches and religious charities are starting to use smart contracts. These are self-executing digital agreements that guarantee total financial transparency. It creates an immutable digital receipt for donations, which turns out to be absolutely crucial for rebuilding trust with a modern tech-savvy congregation that demands real accountability.
But hey, this tech explosion is absolutely bringing some heavy controversy with it. We're actually seeing AI-generated worship music topping digital sales charts. And that forces believers to ask a really uncomfortable question. Can a song created by an algorithm, something without a soul, without a personal testimony, without any human struggle, genuinely lead people into worship? Where exactly does the human heart fit into a line of code?
Section 5. The Future of Faith. Beyond the Algorithm. So, what's the consensus from religious leaders on all this? It really boils down to a massive call for discernment. As one source perfectly put it, God is not an algorithm, and Jesus Christ is not an app. These digital tools, whether they're VR chapels or AI sermon drafters, are incredibly powerful amplifiers, but they have to remain just that, tools. They simply cannot replace the embodied reality of physical community and the depth of the human soul. Because when you step back and look at the grand timeline we've covered, the contrast is just breathtaking. From dragging 16-ton stones across the dirt in ancient Turkey to throwing on a VR headset to log into a metaverse chapel today, the medium has radically, undeniably changed. But that innate human drive, the need to seek meaning, to form communities, and connect with the divine, that remains exactly the same as it was 12,000 years ago.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. As our tools for worship become increasingly virtual, increasingly automated, and entirely artificial, how will they ultimately transform the most human part of who we are? Thanks so much for exploring this with me.